So we're about at verse 6 again. The angel has appeared to Manoah's wife. We don't know her name, but we will someday. Don't let that, ladies, don't let that discourage you. She's a dynamite woman. She was a strong woman, and the Lord appeared to her twice, and that's a rare thing. So don't be discouraged by the fact that we don't know her name. We will someday. And she was a woman of great discernment, and we'll look into that in a little bit more. But the angel appeared to her, and then, as you can imagine, her joy of hearing from him that she was going to have a son, and immediately she believed. What happened? Do you remember Sarah when she was called Sarai? Do you remember what happened when the angel came to Abraham and she was working in the tent, right? And she overheard the angel tell Abraham that you're going to have a son. Do you remember her reaction? She laughed. Okay? And she then tried to deny it. I mean, she's probably like this. She's kind of like, just kind of raised her shoulders a little bit. Right, really? I'm too old for that, right? But the angel said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Do you remember that? I didn't laugh. Yes, you did laugh, right? And so it's an interesting story. But okay, so Sarah laughed. Sarah was a great woman, right? Understandably, she would laugh at 90 years old that you're going to have a son. Don't throw her under the bus. That's understandable. But then look at this woman and say she did not laugh. She immediately believed. Bearing her whole life, bearing the weight of that curse, when the angel said, you're going to have a son, she believed it. She went home and reported the exact thing to her husband in faith. Okay? How about Zacharias with John the Baptist? What did he do when he heard that he was going to have a son? Remember that? He questioned it. Oh, it can't happen. This can't happen. No, that's not going to happen. And so what happened to him as a result of questioning God, whether or not he was going to son, his mouth was closed until John the Baptist was born, right? How about the disciples? Okay, now we're going to move to Manoah a little bit. So we see the faith in Manoah's wife, but now she comes out of the field, wherever she was, she comes and is excited, tells her husband, we're going to have a son, the angel who is awesome. You know, he's awesome in appearance, came to me and told me that we're going to have a son. And how did he respond? He believed her right away. He had faith in her and faith in God. Do you remember the disciples when the women came back from the tomb? When the women came back from the tomb and told them that Jesus was, we're talking about the disciples. John, Peter, right? Andrew, we're talking about the disciples. The church is built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets. When the ladies came back from the tomb, who were first to see Jesus, and they reported to the apostles what they had saw, what did they say? Okay, somebody read it for me. It's found in Luke. Luke chapter 24, we'll find out what they said. Luke chapter 24, verse 11. Somebody read that out loud for me, please. What did the disciples say? They did not believe the ladies. They said, you bunch of women, you're all emotional. You don't know what you're talking about. I know it's hard times and you're sad. We're all sad, but you don't have to make up stories, right? Could have Manoah thought the same thing? A little heat stroke, maybe. You saw this glowing figure. Sure you did. Let's come in and have a glass of water. That's not what he did. Understand that Scripture wrote that down for a reason, so we would see that here's a man who trusted his wife. He believed his wife when she came and reported this to him, and then he gets on his knees and prayed. Now, just stop for a second. Understand that we're living in this time where Manoah and his wife lived was really dark days for the nation of Israel, right? We understand that. The culture was wicked and evil. They were choosing to serve Baal rather than than Jehovah. Do you remember they actually even adopted the covenant relationship they had with Jehovah and made a covenant with Baal? They called him the covenant God. They called Baal the covenant God. And so as a culture, they were just going down into wickedness and evil. Right? I know a lot of us feel that that's where we're heading as a nation right now. Right? Would you shake my head? That you see a lot of things going on. It seems like we as a nation are heading down that path into wickedness and evil. All right. What did God do, or how did God? What was God's plan for society when His people in particular, when they went down into evil? What did He do? He did that for punishment, but how about to restore, to bring restoration? He looked for a family that was faithful. He looked for a family that was faithful. He looked for a husband and wife who were loyal to Him, and He began with them. So I would encourage you, as you're discouraged about the news, work on making sure that your family is faithful and loyal to Christ. Make sure that you are going down the right path before you try to change the White House. Change your house. Right? God starts with, isn't the family the foundation of a society? The most successful, I think the greatest cultural, the most positive cultural things that I see happening now in our society right now are from mothers and fathers who are going to their local school boards and saying, we've had enough, right? It's starting with families saying, my children are not going to do that. I'm not going to allow my children to hear this stuff anymore. We need to change. So it starts with you in the home, with your husband, with your wife, with your children, making a difference there first. And then as you are moving in that direction, then you bring change to your church, and you bring change to your community and change to the state. Does that make sense? That's what we see as the model. God went to a family here, and they raised the next deliverer. Okay, so I just love this marriage between these two guys as I've been digging into it. We see them, they have faith. She believed this impossible news, and Manoah believed her. This is really the start of something beautiful. And their mutual faith, they joined together in their faith, is what set the stage for their obedience. And so the next thing I want us to see is be teachable and be willing to change. All right. Verse 6. So the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And then Manoah said, and then he said to me, behold, you shall conceive, bear a son. Now drink no wine or similar drink, eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. And immediately then Manoah bowed his head or lifted his eyes, whatever he did, his posture, but he prayed. He prayed to God. He prayed to the Lord, to Jehovah, Yahweh, and said, O my Lord Adonai, please let the man of God whom you have sent come to us again. Again, notice the word of again. That again means he believed his wife that he already came once. You see that? Let him come to us again and what? Teach us. Parents, it's key if you're going to be successful as godly parents in this day is to be people of faith, stepping out in faith, making decisions of faith, reaching out to your neighbors in faith, and not only trusting in the Lord, but trusting each other, and make sure that each of you are trustworthy as well, but trusting one another. Then we need to be teachable. He doesn't go to the Lord and say, oh, finally, now here's what I've been wanting, waiting for this, and now let me tell you what I want. Let me tell you how I want this boy to be. You know, I'm really wanting him to get a good education so that he can become a doctor or a lawyer or this or I always wanted to be an athlete myself, so I'm really going to want him to be a professional athlete, so I'm going to work in that direction. None of that stuff. He just laid himself before the Lord and said, you teach me. You teach us. That's incredible. He was just this willing receiver of information and direction from God. And he said, teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born. God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in the field. That's an interesting expression. I don't know why that's in there, but it makes me think that she was either sitting in the field, meditating on what just had happened to her previously, however long it happened, and just absorbing in the wonder and the glory of that she's going to have this great gift of a son, or she was there praying. She says she's sitting in the field. What else? I don't know, but I think it leans to this. What we open the message with is she was just finding solitude time with what she had been told, basking in the blessing of God, maybe even just praying and speaking to him. But what a place to be found. And there she is, sitting in the field by herself, not with her husband, and the angel again appears to her. She didn't ask for this. Her husband did, but the angel again comes to her. Now, men, if we're honest, that may have, wait a minute, I want to get in on this too, and in on this action. Why are you appearing to her and not to me? I'm the husband. I asked for it. But he appears to her, and it doesn't explain to us why. But I just wanted you to see that there's a real unity and a oneness between them, that it did not make him jealous, or he didn't see himself in competing with his wife, and his wife did not use this as some sort of tool to say, look at how I'm better than you. Look at how I'm closer to God than you. Right? She didn't use that to him. Immediately after he appeared, she even says she's in this second appearance with the angel, with the Messiah. And what does she say to the Messiah? Hold it a second. I mean, come on. I mean, can you imagine being in the presence of the person that you admire and respect the most? We just had a gentleman who was here, and he told me, I knew it, but he told me anyway. He comes to me, he was here visiting with Tom Smith, and he said, really appreciated the message, and he said, I hope you like Ronald Reagan. I said, sure, I like Ronald Reagan. He said, he's my cousin, he said. And, I loved Ronald Reagan. I remember seeing him right when he was first running for president back in 1980. I was there as a kid in Tampa, watching him say his speech or whatever. I still remember seeing him up there. Anyway, so who would it be? Who is the person that you would just say, wow, I can't believe they're I'm able to be in their presence and have this conversation with them? Or, I was able to spend some time with Vodi Bakum the other day, and wow, I'm with Vodi. And we're so what is that person? Think about who that might be. Now remember thinking about saying this, hold on a second. Can you just stay there and wait? I'm going to go get my husband. That shows you the love and the loyalty and the significance of their relationship. That she did not want him to miss this moment. That's wonderful. That she's disrupting this powerful moment with the angel of the Lord, with the Messiah, and just saying, hold on a second. I got to get my husband. So I just appreciate that. So she runs back and gets him. And then notice it says that the woman, it says, did what? Somebody read that for me. Verse 10. The woman did what? What does it say in your version? Ran. What? Ran in haste. Scripture's teaching us something here. It could have just said she walked or she skipped. She ran in haste. This was an excited, eager moment for her. She wanted the love of her life, the father of her son, to enjoy this moment. She knew that he prayed, and so she did not want him to miss the moment of being able to speak and see the angel. So she ran and got him, and it says, and so she says, look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me. So Manoah said, why did he appear to you and not to me? No. It doesn't say that, does it? It just says that Manoah arose and followed his wife. Leaders, gentlemen, it's important to know when you should follow. There are times when your wife is going to have her counsel, her advice is going to be what you guys as the family need to follow, and you should follow it when that happens. you should make sure that you're listening. I need to make sure that I'm listening. And young people, and you're training into leadership, whatever, and ladies too, and your leadership responsibilities. Sometimes, when you're working with your kids and, you're in charge, but sometimes what they say maybe makes a little sense and you should hear what they have to say. So a godly leader, not the best, there are a lot of leaders who make terrible followers. Leaders that have been very successful. A lot of coaches in the NFL are great leaders, but they are not good followers. But a godly leader is always going to be a good follower, because we, first and foremost, are followers of Christ, right? So if you're not a follower of Christ, you're not going to make a godly leader. And being a follower of Christ means you're going to be also following the counsel and advice of others as well. So it's just important to remember that. We see he follows his wife. And when he came to the man, didn't mean he wasn't the leader of the home anymore. You understand that? So you sometimes get, that means he's not no, he's still the leader. That's the thing. He is, but he's following his wife because his wife has the inside track to the angel of the Lord. She knows where he is. If he would have said, no, honey, I got this, they would have been just wandering in the field all day. All right. So Manoah rose, followed his wife. When he came to the man, then he speaks up, representing both of them as a leader. He says to him, are you the man who spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. Interesting choice of words. And Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work? Again, give us direction. What's your plan? What he's basically saying to this, which he at this point just thinks is a prophet. He doesn't get that there's something miraculous about him. He just thinks he's got a miraculous message. But he thinks he's just a man at this point. That's why he's kind of talking to him almost as a peer. But he's saying, what is God's will? He's asking for God's will. And I just love these guys. Every turn we see, every single verse and turn we see, they're making the right choice. They're making the right decision. They're having the right attitude. So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, of all that I said to this woman, let her be careful. And goes on to the list. Okay. So what I want us to see in this third category after the teaching is I want us to see how they lived in unity. They were able to rally around this call to raise a Nazirite who would become the deliverer of the people. And they were unified in their submission to the angel's will here, the Messiah's will, really, at this point. They were in unison with one another as to this is the course we're going to take, and they were both willing to make the appropriate sacrifices in order to make this happen. Their whole lives needed to change now that a Nazirite is in the home. And it started with Manoah's wife while she was still pregnant. There are certain things that she now needed to change in her life. Habits are trenches in your mind. Trenches in your soul. The Bible defines them as strongholds. Habits can be good or bad. Manoah and his wife were now about the business of developing good habits in their children's lives. Right? You see that? They were going to do what it takes so that Samson would develop a pattern of good habits, so that it would be much easier for him to stick to them, because they were already doing them when they were young. I think we need to understand the power of habits in our lives, either for good or for ill. If we are developing good habits in our lives, good customs, good traditions in our family, if we are doing that, if we're, they will become easier as you develop them. Spending time together in prayer as a family, spending immersed with little kids, they're bouncing all over the place. Sometimes you have a hard time having them sit still in front of a TV show, let alone sitting still while you're having devotion. So it's going to be difficult. But if you start developing the habit, it will get easier. And you will be training them an important lesson of digging a trench in their life that is leading them to righteousness. It's important for you to think, as a mom and a dad, what are we doing to develop good habits in our lives? And then also we need to think, what are we doing to root up and fill in those bad trenches, those bad habits, to tear down those strongholds in our lives personally or in our family life? Let me read you a quote. A great book, Thoughts for Young Men by J.C. Ryle. And young ladies, please feel free to read that as well. It's a great book. This is what it says in that book. It says, habits are like stones rolling downhill. The further they roll, the faster and more unstoppable. Habits, like trees, are strengthened by age. A boy may bend an oak when it is a sapling. 100 men cannot root it up when it is old and full grown. So it is with habits. The older, the stronger, the longer they have held possession, the harder they will be to cast out. They grow with our growth and strengthen with our strength. Habits, good or evil, are daily strengthening in your hearts every day. Every day you are either getting nearer to God or further off. We are deceived if we think the practices and habits that we have today will not affect tomorrow. Parents, you are deceived to think if you don't think that the habits that you have personally and the things that you are training your kids will not impact them in their lives in the future and have an impact. So make sure that you are seeking to develop good habits and not bad ones. And when you have bad ones, fill them in. And how do you fill in? Let me ask this question. Maybe some of you have successfully done this. I know that some of you have. What do you do to gain victory over a sinful habit in your life? What are the steps that someone can take? Yes?
Accountability.
Okay, explain yourself. What do you mean?
Having a Christian friend hold you accountable for your actions and having those tough conversations when they see you slip up.
Okay, that's very good. Accountability is huge. What else? Yes?
Hide God's word in your heart that you may not sin against him.
Okay. Hide God's word in your heart that you might not sin against him. Scripture says that. That's good. Yes?
Whatever it is that you're doing that you don't want to do anymore, you need to do something else during that time, whatever the trigger is for you. You know, if it's late at night, whatever it is, you've got to fill it in with something else. You can't just stop doing something. I mean, do you have a lot
I told you she has discernment. Do you hear that? That's right. That's exactly right. That's the one I was thinking about. Yeah, you have to come up with something else, right? You can't just stop a bad thing and just expect it to go away. You need to replace it with something good. And start digging that up, digging that trench, making that a habit. And as you're working on that other one will become less ingrained in you, you know? I've probably done it here before, but if you can just work with me on this exercise for a second and see how it goes. Think of the number 7 in your mind. Really see it. And I know some people can't picture in their minds. If you can't, just think, constantly say the number 7, or picture the number 7 in your mind, see if you can. Okay, so does everybody have number 7 in your mind? You got it? Okay, now stop thinking of the number 7. Stop thinking of the number 7. Don't think of the number 7 anymore. Okay, now think of the number 36. Now really focus on 36 in your mind. Focus on it. See the 3 and the 6, focus on that. Now as you're thinking of 36, what have you forgotten? 7. You see how that works? That's the principle here. You need to replace. All right. right, let's see. So at the very end of the chapter, then, verse 24, and then I'll give you some opportunity. We'll have a little opportunity, a few minutes to ask some questions or your thoughts. So now we finished the chapter. So the woman bore a son and called his name Samson, and the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him. This is verse 25, the very last verse. All right. I just want you to be aware of this. Samson talked like it was the fact that his hair was long is the reason why he had strength. If you cut my hair, then I'll lose my strength. His strength came from the Spirit of the Lord. Probably most artist renditions of Samson are not accurate. Probably he looked more similar like you and I. He didn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, most likely. His strength didn't come because he was physically just so much stronger. His strength came from the Spirit of God. And he had broken his Nazirite vow many times before that moment when his hair was cut. But still God empowered him for the sake of the people. All right? So just remember as we go through the story, it was the Spirit of God that empowered him. It wasn't the length of his hair as often we think. All right. Okay, thoughts, questions on this? Anything, any comments on Manoah and his wife?